Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories. So, I closed out the last section of my favorite Chinese foods, part 2, with something I made, jianjia, pot stickers, and I would make hundreds of them at a time, have them in my freezer, take out whenever I wanted to eat them. And so, in this, part 3, my favorite Chinese foods, I want to talk about another thing that I used to make all the time, beef jerky. And I made it in China and then in America. And most places I lived, I made jerky in some form or another because my recipe is easy peasy. Bunch of soy sauce, mix in brown sugar, a few spoonfuls at a time until you get a salty and sweet balance that you like. Marinate the meat in it overnight, lay out the meat on a cooling rack, put the cooling rack on top of a box fan. Your beef jerky will be done in less than 24 hours, air dried. I don't like cooking it because I don't like the texture as much. It gets more break apart like if you cook a steak. It's not as satisfying a bite for me as air dried beef jerky is. You might know air dried beef jerky is biltong. That uses vinegar and a few spices usually. So I'm just going to say air-dried beef jerky. And I love air-dried beef jerky. It's fantastic. And I had my whole recipe down. China doesn't make good beef jerky. Pretty much full stop right there. I've had not bad beef jerky in China before, but on the whole, they tend to add a lot of sugar to the meat, and it's very highly processed stuff. And there's so much spices and sugar on it that it doesn't even taste like you're eating meat. It's very stringy and, I don't know, soft. It's coated in spices, so it usually doesn't taste very good, or at least to my sensibilities. Yak jerky, on the other hand, that is the next favorite food in this odyssey. Yak jerky might now be my favorite jerky. I love my beef jerky. I love Mike's Jerky from Denver, Colorado, shout out. And I love yak jerky. So in China, I don't know why, but for yak jerky, they don't coat it with spices and they don't throw a whole bunch of sugar on it. There is original flavor, which is just the air-dried yak jerky. And then there is spicy or a couple other flavors, but it's very simply made. And they process a yak. Basically, they do exactly what I said. They put them on racks, throw it on top of a fan. You have jerky 24 hours later, maximum. They do dehydrate theirs, so they'll use a little bit of heat. But it's very low heat, and it's pretty much just air-dried yak jerky. I love the spicy flavor, which is crazy spicy for most humans. And I love the original flavor as well. So I'll get 2 bags each of those whenever I'm in China. It's a thicker meat than beef. It's not a tougher meat than beef. So you really have to work at it to get through the yak. And the muscles are just so dense. But when you are eating it, the flavor, even the unflavored stuff, the flavor of yak meat is so strong and comes through so well as a jerky. I like most jerkied meats. I think the meat usually tastes better jerkied, but yak comes through the best. It tastes amazing with just the concentrated flavor of the meat itself. Just a very strong, bovine, tasty flavor. Surprisingly more flavorful than beef. If I could get yak, I would be making my jerky from yak rather than beef. So there was a guy who would join the market outside my apartment building, really just around the corner on the same block. And they have all the vegetables and the meats and everything. And then one guy would drive up every few days or so and set up a stall that said yak jerky. And he had long sticks of yak jerky, maybe a meter long. And you could order a half kilogram or a kilogram, whatever you wanted. And it was very tough stuff, but probably the best tasting yak jerky I had. And he used these large shears to cut off the amount that you said you wanted. And I would get bags of that stuff, sometimes 2 kilograms, and just go to town. I love beef jerky, and then I found out I loved yak jerky more. So I just get a bunch of yak jerky, get a bunch of beer, go play The Witcher 3 in my room, eating and drinking and having a great snack time, or watch a movie, or just hang out, whatever I was doing, with a huge bag of snack jerky by my side. And it was eating that yak jerky that made me realize, oh, I can make this very good and very simple. And that's how I got down to 2-ingredient jerky that I like more than any other jerky in the world, except for shout out Mike's Jerky in Denver. And I kind of became friends with the guy. I'm sure, he was happy that I was buying all of this jerky almost daily. But that's it. This is, a pretty simple favorite food. It tastes amazing. It's just one great tasting, great texture. I love jerky. It was fantastic. The guy was cool. It was great. I actually was eating so much so fast that it was eating into my money. I probably spent the most on yak jerky because it's a little more expensive than it's a lot more expensive than other meats. So I actually got the shears that he used to chop up the yak jerky. And when I got it home, I would chop it into even smaller pieces so that I had more pieces to eat. So I would spend like 20 minutes chopping up all these pieces of jerky, eating a piece, and chopping them all up until I had this huge bag of mini pieces. And boy, is it good. I love yak jerky. If you get a chance, if you see someone selling it, get yak jerky while you're in China if you like jerky. That is the stuff. So let's move on back to food that they make in restaurants that I never made myself. Rojiamo. It's another sandwich, but not donkey meat. This one is marinated pork meat. It has, it's a lot like pulled pork. So it's basically, you can think of it as like Chinese pulled pork in a steamed and then grilled bun. And they throw in a bunch of sauces and some vegetables if you want, or you can just get the meat inside. I like to get some onions and stuff. And it's like the perfect sandwich. There's enough meat to bread ratio. The bread itself is not too thick. It's soft on the inside, but the crust is a little thicker and chewier on the outside. And they grill the meat, put that inside the sandwich, and then grill the bread on both sides. They'll put on some jalapenos and onions, like I said. And then you just get it in this little bag, and it's a great little sandwich. When I tried it the first time, I was blown away, and I couldn't believe that it was so simple and still tasted so good. And I found out it was from the city of Xi'an. And later I went to Xi'an mostly because of that sandwich. I wanted to try that sandwich where it was from. That's also the city that has all of the terracotta warriors, and those were cool too, but a whole bunch of them were on display in another country while I was there. They were like being lent to England or something. And I was like, cool terracotta warriors, and then I just walked up and down the streets finding different Rojiamoa places that I could try. Rojiamoa, meat between bread. So it really is like the prototypical Chinese sandwich because the word for it is rojiamo, meat between bread, which is kind of interesting. And it does taste different in Xi'an. Just like Guinness tastes different in Ireland, rojiamo has a much stronger, I don't know what kind of spice, and I don't want to say tangy, but I'll say it because whatever. It has a stronger tang. There's some unknown spice to me that is stronger in all of the Xi'an rojiamoa, and they like spicier rojiamoa, spicier sandwiches. So there's green and red pepper mixed in, and they'll also put on chili pastes and oils and other things. So the sandwiches are much more flavorful in Xi'an than you'll usually get if you get the Xi'an sandwich in Beijing or Chengdu or Ningbo or Hejiang, wherever you go. It does seem like the Xi'an rojiamoa are the best. That said, every single time I found a rojiamoa place in another city, I was ecstatic, and it still tasted great. It was just usually more salty, soy forward than many different strong flavors delivering a really powerful punch like I got in Xi'an. And that is important, actually, because I would go to many Rojiamoa places in other cities, and sometimes the Rojiamoa person would be from Xi'an, because that's their regional food. So if you're opening up in a foreign city, you should make the food your region is famous for. It's an easier way to get into the local food scene. And I made friends with this old grandma-grandpa couple, and they were shocked, of course, that I spoke Mandarin, and shocked that I've been traveling, and shocked that I loved Rojiamoa, shocked that I loved spicy Rojiamoa especially. And they would, give me extra, and I was explaining to them how much I liked the Xi'an Rojiamoa specifically because of that extra flavor they have, and they were like, "That's right, ours are the best." So if you know where the food that is your favorite is from, and then you meet someone from that province, you tell them, "Hey, you know what? I love Pijio Kaya, or I love Jiachuan, or I love Jianbing," that's coming up, or Rojiamoa. They're very excited to talk about their food with you. Food is such a huge part of Chinese culture that even if they've never cooked before, they're very proud of the dishes that are from their provinces or associated with their provinces. So the more you love a food, learn a little more about it because it can help you during your journey make friends and, importantly, connect to this country that you're traveling in that is giving you so much. Learning about the food you love is a great way to make connections. Which brings me to one of the first foods that ever made me connections with Chinese people. I could not speak anything at this point. I had the 6 words, 3 colors, 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3. And I had eaten 7-Eleven sushi for breakfast for a couple days, and I was just trying to figure out what I could order. I knew the Sihongshu Jidan Mian, but I was still eating breakfast at this point. So I tried to walk around in the morning and see what breakfast foods there were. Because I had seen people at street-side stalls and other people walking around holding food, munching into it, but I didn't know how to say anything, and I didn't know what anything was. But something that caught my eye was what looked like a very thin omelet in a package, and people were just holding it with their hands and biting into it, and there was a crunch, and I figured I would like that. So I found an old man selling the omelet sandwich at his breakfast stand he set up that morning with people waiting in front, and I stood in line. I got more and more nervous as each person, spoke in Mandarin. Oh, 你好，我要一个。对了，要。So 都要。And every person talked like totally normal, of course, because that's their language. And I just kept getting more nervous, creeping up one customer at a time, because I knew he would ask me and I would have to answer all these questions that I didn't know how to answer because I didn't know how to answer anything at the time. And then I got there and I said, E, because I don't think I even knew how to say "iga," which is how you say I want one thing. You can't just say one. You have to add a measure word like "ge," which means thing. And I don't think I even knew how to say that. So I just said, one. And he was like, 所以你要一个煎饼吗? I said, E. Just said one again. 煎饼要不要? And I was like, E. And he's like, 要辣椒吗? I said, Yao, because I remembered that Yao meant I want. And what he was saying, I think, was Yao bu Yao, which means, do you want? So I just said Yao, because whatever it is, just put it on. Next time I do this, I'll have context, but for now, I'm just going to get everything. 你要加菜吗? Yao. 你要下菜吗? Yao. 你要杜味道吗? Yao. And I just kept saying Yao to everything he asked me. But I was already sort of entranced because as soon as he asked me the first question, he had cracked an egg on a rotating sort of crepe circular hot plate. So it's basically this large heated iron circle that he turns around with a pedal on the ground, and while it's turning around in a circle, he cracks an egg on it, and then uses a type of elongated wooden spatula that can cover half the surface of the circle, like the radius of the circle, and he holds it over the egg, so it smears the egg in a very thin layer across the entire circle, which is still going around. And then you have that very, very thin layer of egg. So while that's cooking, and he's asking me these questions one by one, and I'm enthusiastically saying, Yow! He sprinkles xiaotai, which is chopped cilantro, and jiaotai, the chopped chives, and then some spices, which I wanted, and some MSG, which I wanted, and then some lajiao, spicy oil, which I wanted. And he throws all that on there, plus a sprinkling of dark sesame seeds. I think they're black sesame seeds. And then he takes a piece of fried bean curd, which is just like a very thin layer of tofu, like a millimeter thick, fried in oil. So it's just basically just crunch as a food, and puts that in the middle, folds this egg omelet on top of it, cuts it in half, folds it again, slaps the crunchy part again, folds it again, and then folds it up. So it becomes this pocket folded 8 times or something. So you don't have one sandwich with, bread on the outside and the good stuff in the middle. This is a good 16 layers of spice, oil, chili pepper, the cilantro, jiaotai, the chives, and you can get as much or as little of all of that as you want, and you can leave out ingredients or add more if you want to. And boy, when I bit through that 8 layers of crunch and egg and everything, or however many layers it was when I tried it the first time, I was blown away by the flavor. It's so much flavor, but it's still so simple because it's really just egg, a few herbs, some chili oil, and then crunch. It's like a crunchy, savory omelet baklava, but it is the perfect breakfast snack. And that was all I ate for breakfast, basically until I stopped eating breakfast, which was maybe a year and a half later. But if I was getting breakfast, I got jianbing every time. Jian means fried, and bing is like bread, so I guess it's like pancake. But calling it a Chinese pancake is absurd. Jianbing is a completely different food. There's so much going into it. There's no fluffy bread, just a very thin layer of batter before he cracks the egg on that. There's just the egg, which for me, I like way more. There's so much more flavor in something like an egg with some oil and chili oil and all that good spices on it. And then just the flavorless crunch, which just adds a great texture to the whole thing. And because it's folded like that, every single spice and every single texture is in every single bite. Now, this is really interesting because if you had a sandwich and the sandwich guy was lazy, let's say you got a Philly cheesesteak, and he throws the peppers on one side and the onions on another side, then you're going to have a few good bites, but mostly you're going to have too much pepper in one bite and not enough onion, or too much onion in one bite, not enough pepper. Or if they throw on the sauce, lazy and crappy, then you're all going to have really good sauce bites, and they're going to have dry bites without any sauce. Same with the cheese. What if they put the cheese in the wrong place? Okay, so what's really interesting about this is that this huge crepe thing, this crepe rotating iron circle, is pretty wide, like at least a couple feet wide, sometimes 1 meter wide. And they have to fold it, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 7 times. All of those spices, all of the sauce, every ingredient is getting folded on itself to a smaller area until you have this small crispy omelet folded down to about the size of your hands. But because it's folded down, every single flavor and texture is in every single bite, because it's just by being folded. Statistically, wherever he threw all those spices and everything, which they try to get mostly evenly distributed when it's unfolded, ends up perfectly distributed on average randomly throughout this crispy hand omelet, this jianbing. So every bite has the egg and the seeds and the chili oil and the crunch and the herbs in every single bite. And again, it tastes amazing. I couldn't believe how good it tastes. After I ate that morning, the most exciting thing I thought about all day was, I'm going to eat that again for breakfast tomorrow. I'm so psyched to eat that again. It was really the most exciting thing for weeks, maybe. I couldn't stop myself. I could have, but there was no way I was. Why would I? I went down there the next day, and this time I said yao, and I now knew the word for chili oil, la jiao, and that was boy, their chili oil is so good, and so I said yao la jiao. He said, oh, la jiao, 喜欢辣椒吗? And I was like, Yao La Jiao, because I didn't know what he asked me. So he put more La Jiao on it for me, and and it tasted even better than what I had already accepted as a perfect breakfast that every other country was doing wrong. And that became my guy. I went there every day, and sometimes he would talk to the other people in line if they were like, oh, 这个老外会说中文吗? Which is the foreigner can speak Chinese, and he'd be like, 这个老外每天来，他很喜欢煎饼，他吃每天吃多. And which is like, oh, he loves it. He comes here every day for this breakfast. He eats a ton of them. And, everyone in line is like smiling and nodding. And I'm just eagerly chanting, Yao, Yao, because I know he's going to ask me, like, give me the whatever he says. I still can't understand most of the questions he's asking me. Oh, pao cai is another one that some of them do. So you can also get pickled onions and pickled vegetables sprinkled on it. So you get a little, fermented vinegar vegetable kick in there, kind of like kimchi spread throughout. Boy, that adds a good taste, unless it's the sweet pao cai, and then you don't want it. But everything else is just so good. And it was a really fun ritual for me every morning for months and months. And it did become routine eventually, but I never liked the jianbing any less. Sometimes I would get jianbing twice in a day, and a couple times I actually got it 3 times in a day, which is crazy. But after a day, I was like, 3 was too many. I think I'm sick. And then a day later, I'd be like, okay, so I'll get one for the morning, though. I ate hundreds of those. And whenever I went to a new city in the morning, that was the first thing I searched for, a jianbing, because I just loved them. Now, you can get them during lunch and dinner also. So when I switched to 1 meal a day, I could still get jianbing, which was a legitimate concern for me. But I found out that as long as you look around, there are people making the lunch and breakfast foods all day. You just have to know where they are. But when you go to China to visit, if you, like any good normal human, eat breakfast, look around. There will be an old man standing in front of a big metal circle, sweeping a spatula around, making what looks like a giant omelette on it. And then he has a stack of bubbly, crispy something next to it. That's the jianbing. Go get it. Say, yao, 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 a bunch of times until he gives you everything, fold it up and gives it to you. Oh, and it costs nothing. It's less than $1. When I got to China, it was like 50 cents for one or something. And I think when I went back, it was closer to $1, but still less than $1. That's a decade, 11 years later, maybe? I don't know, much later. But it's such a great breakfast food. You must try it if you have the opportunity. I can't think of a breakfast food that I enjoy more right off the top of my head. Like, oh yeah, that's definitely better than a jianbing. I can't think of something with so many different flavors, so much great texture, variability so that you can put whatever you want inside it, convenience and ease to eat. You can hold it in your hands and there's a little wrapper around it. It's just the best of every breakfast world. I guess French toast is really good, but I'm more of a savory guy, so this jianbing just takes the cake for my favorite breakfast food, I think, overall. Wow, I haven't had a jianbing in like a year now. These episodes might make me return to China, to be perfectly honest. That might actually happen now that I'm thinking about all of these foods. Oh my god, I can get the yak jerk. Okay, sorry guys. Let's get back on track, Kai. Okay, since we're talking about the jianbing, this one singular exquisite meal, this perfect food item in my mind, I want to go for my other one, which is ganbian doujiao. And that's like dry fried beans, basically. Dry fried green beans. They also have ganbian sijido, which is like string beans, but the green bean ones are better because there's less liquid inside. So when they fry, they really fry to a crunchy, chewable texture instead of popping with the bean liquid inside. They also call them different things. Sometimes they'll say one or the other. But anyway, the one I became familiar with first is ganbian doujiao. And this is another very simple dish that is delicious. So it is green beans, ground pork, chopped chili peppers, and the Sichuan peppercorn, the ma, the numbing spice that I love. And they must put some sort of starch or corn flour into the ground beef because it doesn't clump together like if you cooked a sausage patty or something. It's all discrete, one kernel of ground beef, like 1 by 2 centimeters of ground beef. And there are hundreds of these little pieces of ground beef or ground pork, more usually, mixed in with the beans. And they fry this all up and then throw the chili peppers and the Sichuan peppercorns in, fry it for the same amount of time, put it on a plate, done. And they're using oil to fry it in a pan. And they might fry the beans first to remove extra moisture so that when they fry everything together, the beans get really crispy, crunchy, and still have enough moisture inside to taste like a vegetable and be a satisfying crunch. So when they're done, of course there's like soy sauce and other sauces added in, but just a little bit all at the end. You have this perfect flavor and perfect texture of crispy, but just enough moisture to still taste like you're chewing a vegetable, green beans, but there's a nice pleasant crunch to them now on the outside, with the flavor of the oil and the shoyu and all the good spices on top of the skin of all of the green beans. And then you have little bits of pork, ground pork, that have all that flavor on every discrete kernel of ground pork that has been fried perfectly. Crunchy outside, meat on the inside, with all of that flavor. None of it is burnt. It's all cooked, fried perfectly, each little kernel of ground meat. And then you have the roughly chopped chili peppers adding this beautiful spice throughout the whole thing, and there are the red chili peppers also fried in that same oil and spice mix. So the actual chili pepper skins even taste good, although you probably shouldn't eat them. And I usually only nibble on a few of them to get more flavor from my favorite dish. And then, of course, my favorite spice, the ma, the Sichuan peppercorns. And those are little crunchy things, and I will actually crunch those and eat them and get a wave of numbness through my mouth in between picking out every single piece of ground meat. That's the crazy thing I do. Now, this is great. It's vegetables and meat. Great flavor. So I like to eat it normally and just enjoy the whole meal without thinking about it. And then after, there's still a bed, because the pieces of ground meat are so small, there's a bed of fried ground meat pieces left over on the plate, and my shoulders relax, I lean back in the chair, and piece by piece I pluck each bit of fried, crispy, savory meat from the plate and enjoy all the meat on the plate piece by piece until there is not one single piece left. And then I am fully sated and content and just one with the world. It's also a extremely salty dish, and I do like salt a lot. So that's my favorite. When I went back to China this year, that was like the number one thing I was looking for, besides, the other 12 things I already mentioned, which I was also searching for. But the thing about ganbian doujiao, it's a very delicate dish. They have to cook it not too long, not too short. They have to pre-cook a lot of the moisture out of the doujiao, out of the green beans, or you get a much less nice texture. It's usually too soft. Have to put enough peppercorns. You got to make sure you also have the garlic and all this, not too much shoyu. So it's a huge dance of delicate flavors and spices. And different provinces, towns, and even people will call the dish a different thing. Ganbian doujiao, ganbian sejido. So you might actually get the wrong thing if you're not paying attention when you order and ask, this is doujiao, not sejido, right? Although some restaurants say sejido about doujiao and doujiao about sejido. They call string beans green beans and green beans string beans. So you really have to make sure you're getting the right thing because names for dishes are very different across even towns, not to mention provinces. But man, when I find the right one, that's the place I go to from then on. And when I visited China this last time, I had to go to at least 6 different restaurants and eat the ganbian doujiao, which was always good, but not what I was looking for, not that perfect level above regular food. And then I found it. And even though they allowed people to smoke inside, which was illegal, and it was a very cramped restaurant, all this stuff, I put up with it because their ganbian doujiao was exactly what I was talking about. Perfect, crispy, savory, not burnt pieces of discrete ground pork, perfectly pre-fried and then refried green beans, so they got crunchy but still tasted like a vegetable. An abundance of red chopped chilies and Sichuan peppercorn liberally sprinkled in and fried with everything. And all of the other bits of little onion or garlic here and there just mixed in. And perfect. And I went there the entire time I was visiting China. Every week at least I would go in and get another dish of it because I knew I was going to have it like 10 times, once a week, maybe twice a week while I was there, and then I was not going to find that again outside of China. Love that dish. Highly encourage you to try ganbian doujiao. Okay, I want to move on to snacks because there are a lot of things considered snacks rather than meals because they're very simply made and they're easier to eat. You know, they don't give you a huge portion. It's just like a snack, and they're at a lot of the fairs that Chinese towns have all the time. So you can go to them and there's stalls everywhere, and there's these sausages that I kind of liked, but they usually balance too much sweet or the texture was too fatty or something. And there's like little dough balls that are fine, but whatever. And then I tried cho tofu, stinky tofu. And I lived in China almost continuously for over 6 years, a very long time, and on and off for 8 years. And that food I did not eat until I believe my 5th year. It was either my 4th or 5th year in China. And I think that's the longest of any food that I definitely knew was around that I just didn't try. I tried pretty much every food. Like I said, gotta get that donkey dick next time I'm in Beijing or any Luohuxiao place. But cho tofu, stinky tofu, smells so gross that I didn't even try it. And I tried duck butthole, pig intestine, brain. I tried everything. And those 3 suck. And we'll talk about them in the Chinese Foods That Suck episode, which I'll politely title something more civil. But this cho tofu smelled so abhorrent, and you can smell it from half a block away. It's astonishing how potent the smell is, even though most of these vendors are selling it outside in the open air, and there's just one pot of simmering sauce. But it's just so stanky because it's a fermented mix of spices and vinegar and whatever that I didn't even try it. I thought about it, I'd think, and then when I hit the periphery of the wafting scent half a block away, I think, you know what, you should just try it. But I'm still walking, so now I'm 10 steps closer. I'm like, yeah, if that's the smell, you can probably try it. It's not going to kill you. 10 steps closer. It doesn't smell great. 10 steps closer. Smells pretty bad. And then it just is awful. And then you're like, nope, just smells like fermented sewer. And then you just try to breathe less while you walk by it. And while I'm walking by it, there are 3 people in line telling them what toppings they want on the stinky tofu. That's literally what it means. Cho tofu. Cho means stinky and tofu is tofu. It's just called stinky tofu. And I would sail on by thinking, you know what? Maybe one day. Brain doesn't smell like that. Duck asshole doesn't smell as bad as that. Like, maybe one day I'll try cho tofu, but not today. And then, one day, I did. And it is delicious. I love fermented foods. I like the sour vinegary taste with the spices inside, and I love well fried foods so that the outside is crispy and the inside still has moisture but a lower content. So it's almost dried out. That flavor gets stronger, and then the outside is a bit crunchy, but not too crunchy and not sodden in oil. And so what cho tofu is thin blocks of tofu, maybe 1 inch by 1 inch or 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch squares, and about, I don't know, half a centimeter thick, a quarter of an inch thick, not very thick, pretty thin. And they deep fry these to that texture I just detailed. And then they throw that in a bowl, and then they put this sauce, this super stinky sauce, that's where the smell is coming from, a bubbling, simmering cauldron of green spices and fermented juice. And that is ladled over all of the fried tofu. And then they ask what else you want on it. And I love the doujiao, which is actually suji do, string beans, pickled string beans, specifically chopped up into very little segments. And that's sprinkled on top, and you get the cilantro and the jiucai, the chives that they put on everything. And some sauces, and you can make it spicier or whatever, and spices if you want. Then they stab a skewer on the top of it, hand it to you, you give them $1, and then you use that skewer to eat piece by piece that bowl of stinky tofu. And okay, so I have also tried durian, and that just straight up smells like hot trash to me. And when I tried it, I was like, this tastes mostly like trash. I don't like this. There's nothing here for me. And I don't eat durian. And when I ask Chinese people about durian, they're like, yeah, it tastes like trash, but I really like it. And I don't know. There's nothing to like remove you from the taste and smell of trash with durian. Whereas with stinky tofu, there's the fermented flavor swimming through every other aspect of the dish. Fermentation, the sour, vinegary acid cutting through all the strong flavors, mixed with spicy, and there's vegetables, and the tofu itself is innocuous. It's such a rich flavor, and the smell is stronger. There's something in the smell that does not translate to the taste, that is left out of the taste, I should say, because the smell always smells pretty stinky, but the taste always tastes good. It has all of the complexity of the flavor of that scent, but the flavor doesn't have any of the offending scent. All the bad parts of the smell are left out of the soup flavor itself. So instead you have this really interesting, thick, like if you poured out the kimchi water afterwards, except it's made into a thicker soup. That's a great flavor. So you can have this great pickled vegetable soup flavor mixed with all the other spices on top of these crispy bits of tofu. It's an absolutely delicious meal, and definitely one of the worst things you're going to smell while you're walking around China, because people like me love it and we keep eating it, so they keep cooking it. But if you're like, no way that something that smells that bad can taste good enough to make up for it, I recommend it. I advise you to give it a shot because it's good. Tofu is good. This fermented spiced vegetable soup is good. The toppings are all tasty. It's a great snack. Okay, we have now talked about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 15 of my favorite foods in China. And I can't think of another one off the top of my head. I'm sure as soon as I finish editing and producing this episode, I will remember 5 more. And then we're going to have another episode for sure, because I love talking about this food. But I do want to throw in a few honorable mentions. Soup dumplings are great. I know they're getting popular in the States. I like the jia soup dumplings, which is the fried ones. So they fry these little baozi after filling them with soup. Baozi is like the dumpling like a bun with a hollow part in the middle that soup is filled inside. That is a great food. It's a pain in the butt to eat. It's always too hot and burns your mouth. But it is a tasty food. And for a while, I was like, ooh, that's almost as good as everything else. So that's almost there. It's almost there. Then baozi itself, Chinese steamed buns. So it's a piece of dough. They put beef or xianggu, shiitake mushrooms or something in the middle of it, and then twist up the top, and you have a little pretty steamed bun. I like the xianggu bai cai, the cabbage shiitake mushroom ones. Those ones are a dang good. And that is actually above the soup dumplings for me. Good xianggu bai cai. It's just a simple steamed vegetables inside this simple steamed bun, but the flavor is so satisfying and light and delicious that it might be one of my other favorite foods. Especially, I have such fond memories of eating it before I set out on these mountain hikes, or after I got to the top of a mountain, or when I was chilling at home. You have this fluffy bread. The baozi are super fluffy bread with great flavors inside, just a little bit of oil on the vegetables when they fried them before they chopped them up and put them in the baozi. It's a very light food, but it also completely fills you up, tastes great, is simple, and you can eat it anytime. They're always delicious. I have a very fond memory of finding a good xianggu bai cai baozi place the last time I visited China, and I bought 3 of them. I bought 1 beer. I walked over to a bench next to this huge river that runs through Foshan, and I ate my baozi and just thought, this is as good as life gets. As living in the stream of consciousness that is humanity existing within this world, that is about as one with the world as I could have been at that point. It was a glorious instance. And with those 2 mentions, I will close this out. Eager to see you in the next one where I remember all of the things that I didn't mention here. And truly, when I had discovered each of those foods, if someone had asked me, oh, wow, you really like that, is that your favorite food? I would honestly have answered them, oh yes, definitely, this dish of frog is my favorite Chinese food. Oh, the pijiu kao ya, the beer-fried roast duck? Yeah, that is my favorite food. Oh, the sihong shi jidan, this tomato egg noodle soup? Yeah, that is my favorite. Oh, the jianjiao? Oh, the yak jerky? Yes, this is my favorite food in China. I would have believed it and meant it when I said it if someone had asked me each time I discovered these new foods. Ganbian doujiao? I still kind of defend that one. I mean, So I know I said every single food was my favorite food. That is true. They are all individually my single favorite food from China. I love Chinese food. I'm excited to talk more about Chinese food when I remember my other single only favorites. It looks like China is opening up hostels, by the way, which I didn't realize, but I've been helping someone move to China recently, and they've been looking up hostels, and now there are a whole bunch of hostels in the bigger cities. So I'm seeing dozens of... Nope, that's just about 1 dozen. I'm seeing 1 dozen hostels priced between $5 and $12 in Chengdu right now that you could get tomorrow. So that's $150 to $300 a month to live in a hostel in Chengdu, the flavor capital of the world. Chongqing is better, but don't tell the Chengdu people. And you can try all of these foods there and many, many more besides. Hang out with some really cool people, save a whole bunch of money living in China, make a whole bunch of money if you want to teach them English while you're there. One-on-one tutors make $100 per hour. And again, most importantly, eat all this food I was talking about. Boy, talking about this food. I might bump into you in China. I still haven't visited the entire country. I still got things to see there. Great excuse to go eat all that food I love. So, yeah, maybe I'll see you there. Hope so. Oh, as always, you can contact me at bitofarambler@gmail.com. Hope to hear from you.
Having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.